the Kaiser Domination series. And well, in today's part, we will be looking into a few things, including an Irish Rebellion, Germany withdrawing from France, and Turkey falling into complete turmoil, but not unexpected. Turkey was unstable during the war. And well, let's get into it. And right away, the IRA shows up. And they start a resistance across Ireland. And around some of the cities like Dublin. Quickly, the British come in. And what are they trying to do? Well, pacify them. But an Irish offensive is still happening at this point. As well, Britain starts moving troops into the island, with these two rebel groups connecting, and this group here managing to connect with this group moving forward, with a British counter-offensive happening, and pushes them all the way out of the south, and attempts to push them out of Dublin. And they cut them off here. But with another Irish rebellion breaking out, with it continuing, and they start taking more lands, with more rebels rising up, in the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, quickly marches for victory. But they are quickly slowed down in this advance, as well Britain launches a counter-offensive. And well, Ireland makes a march to victory. They've lost Dublin, but that doesn't stop the Irish Republican Army from continuing to victory as it takes Dublin and moves into loyalist areas and pacifies and starts taking over. With the Irish Declaration of Independence happening. And now we got the Free Ireland. Okay, that was a bit out of order of the plan, but that's okay. And well, in Scotland, a rebellion breaks out. And well, Scots quickly try to win, but it doesn't go very well. And yeah, some of their islands aren't even colored in. That's a mistake. With them quickly taking over key Scottish areas such as Dundee, Glasgow, and Edinburgh. And well, at this point, well, the rebellion is put down. But the Irish Rebellion was a complete success. Well, now the fall of this area has happened. And well, we can see they're pretty strong. And well, Britain is greatly weakened at this point. Civil war seems inevitable. With Germany at this point deciding it's time to withdraw from France. They quickly withdraw out of this area, Brittany. And then they withdraw out of Normandy. And then they withdraw out of Paris. Well, they withdraw away from France's coast at this point. And then they fully withdraw. And France is full again. And well, now let's see what's happening in Turkey. Angry. Why are they angry? Because they believe Turkey was betrayed in the First World War in the treaty. Why do they believe this? Well, because despite huge losses by the Turkish people, they got less than they deserved, they believe. And they argue that Turkey was mistreated by the Central Powers. And, well, they say they were gave a lot less land than they deserved. They deserve all of Egypt. They deserve Libya back. And they deserve more of Russia. And, well, they quickly start their rebellions. Now for Turkey to realize they're actually in trouble now. With all these rebellions breaking out, compare on. It's not great. Well, these nationalist forces quickly advance and more of them pop up across the mighty empire. And they are very nationalist. Turkey first, Turkey is great, Turkey is the best. Yes. And they even rise up there. But at this point, we see the beginning of the Arab Rebellion. Why an Arab Rebellion? Because the Arabs believe they are oppressed. And guess what? We won't have the Jewish state of Israel in this timeline. With them quickly rebelling and taking over much of Iraq. And they also take up much of this area in Levant. And at this point, this is what their rebellion looks like. Can Turkey hold on to them? I don't know. But guess what? I didn't color in all of Turkey's islands. So maybe these nationalists that I have rebelling probably don't like me. But they might. Who knows what they think of the wild mapper. And well, a Greek rebellion breaks out across this area. And well, the Mandra quickly take over the coast, and they continue. With Greece wanting control over this. But at this point, we see the Armenian Rebellion. Yes, there's no Armenian problems this time. But an Armenian Rebellion. Because they fear the nationalists. You know who else fears the nationalists? The Kurds. And now for the Kurdish Revolution. I guess maybe over here. And we're rebelling over here. And quickly, like the Arabs, they start connecting their front. And then we see an Egyptian revolution. Well, this one wasn't a surprise. Egypt wants their sovereignty. And well, yes, the rebellion. And now the Turkish Civil War breaks out. With Greek rebels trying to take over some of the islands and push inland. And the Mandra cut off the strait, but they failed to advance past. And well, the nationalist rebels start taking more land over. As they make a big encirclement against Turkish forces and this. No one's a big fan of Turkey. With the Kurds invading this area held by the nationalists. To get control over more lands and have less risk of them attacking. And then they advance to the coast, knowing that they might not end up with the coast. And well, the Arab rebellions go against these two areas. And they quickly start opening their front. And well, the rest of the lands in the south fall to the Egyptians. With the nationalists pushing on towards the Greek areas of this nation. And they now take Istanbul. They still haven't taken Ankara. But the nationalists are winning on the road to winning. Well, the Arab forces continue north. And well, at this point we see this happen. And well, Greece decides to intervene. And they declare war. They declare war. Why war, you may ask? Why do they want to declare war? Because they're now intervening with Greek intervention beginning. With these forces also joining Greece. And you know how there's not borders, just because there isn't any technically yet. And well, they go after the islands, and they also manage to capture Cyprus. And you may say, that's impressive. But they also manage to push the nationalists back a bit over here. Not very much. But with the nationalists now pushing in and taking Ankara. And they move south, taking these lands. whereas the Arabs and Egyptians signed peace, with the Kurdish rebels taking more land. And with what's left of the Ottoman Empire managing to push the Armenians back. And at this point, both Bulgaria and Russia joins, with Bulgaria marching in to take Istanbul. And they also move into this area, with the Turkish Nationalists pushing on this. Well, they managed to push Russian forces back a bit, but not much, as they started an invasion of the Kurdish areas. Their invasion goes really smoothly, but with this happening, well, and all these interventions, well, with the Greek forces on one front and the Russian forces on another, they're starting to get pushed back significantly with Greek and Bulgarian forces, and quite a bit by Russian forces. Managed to get peace with these. And then they launched an invasion against the Arabs. Yes. As the Turkish Civil War starts coming to an end, with them thinking they finished off the Arab rebels, but they also rise up in the south again, with them managing to move down the coast and start pushing them back. But the problem is, once they push them over here, knowing they couldn't take it, they started moving over here. And well, now for the peace treaty. Annexing a lot of the coast from Turkey. Bulgaria annexes all of Thrace and, well, you guessed it, Istanbul and a bit more land. With Greece also annexing, well, Cyprus. With Turkey losing Egypt and a bit more land that was occupied by Egypt. And their south rebelled. Yes, their south. Although it's not on the map, it also rebelled. And at this point, well, that's pretty much all for today's video. But in the outro, we can see, yes, the Arab state forms here. Will they unite or will they not? That's the question. And well, what will happen in the next episode? England is starting to fall apart. Will they stand or will they fall? Russia stabilized a bit after their victory in Armenia. Starting to make them more stable. But there's still a lot of resistance in the Caucasus region. Although in the Armenian region, less, and Finland, lots of resistance up in Finland with Norwegian, and Danish, and British, and French support. And well, Spain is doing okay. Same with Portugal. And well, that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out. But not until you subscribe. Bye!